Hello, today I'll be going through the backend for our real estate application. I will be going through all of the functions that are available through the backend, going over the code and why it makes sense, and I'll be showcasing a couple of the functions. Due to the sheer amount of functions that I have, I will not be showing all of them, but I will show enough to show that they are in fact functional. So for starters, we decided to make our backend using Express.js. This meant that the setup is incredibly easy. All you have to do is call the express function, and then that part of it is set up. To connect to the database, we used MySQL 2. And as you can see here, the connection is established. When you run the server, it says that it's listening on whichever port it is listening, and it says whether the connection is established once it connects. After this, the app is ready, and on these URLs, it'll execute the following code. So this is just an example ping pong. However, we get into our first proper function here, where we do login. As you can see, the basic way in which this works is that you can pass in a query, after which one of the parameters is the function that executes after the query is executed. So first, for login, we check if the email and password matches, and if there is a match, we send true, or otherwise we send false. So let's see that in action. If we go to the database, we can grab one of the users. Let's do this one. We need email and password. So we'll do email here, and the email is this one. And over here we have password, and we'll do 123. So now if we ping it, oh, I see. I send ping instead of login. That's the issue. So if we do login, we will get the response auth false. However, if we put in the correct password, and then we send it, as you can see, we get auth true, and we get back all of the user data, which can then be used on the front end in order to display all of this and get any other information that might be necessary. So that's the basic setup of the function, and all of the functions will behave in a similar way. Next up, let's start with what a seller is able to do on our site. One of the things they're able to do is add a listing. In order to add a listing, first of they need to pass in their email, the address they're listing for, the agent they're listing with, and the price. In order to list, there has to be no active listing available for that unit already. And we also need to check if the unit that they are listing actually exists. So if the unit doesn't exist, for now we just send a 404 saying the unit isn't in our database. While our application is small, they would need to contact one of the database admins for the unit to be placed into our database. However, if it is, then they are able to successfully add the listing, as can be seen here. Well, once again, we first check if a listing is currently active for this unit. If it is, then we send them a 404 basically saying, hey, listing is already active, therefore we can't set it now. And then otherwise, if it passes all of the checks, then it successfully inserts into the listing all of the information with the list date being set to the current time. This one requires quite a bit of information, so I will not show it. If you doubt that any of these work as they do, you can get our code from the GitHub that is posted in our report. Next up, the same people who are able to add listings should also be able to remove them. Very similar, we check if a listing exists. If there is no such listing, well, then we can't remove a listing. But if the listing does exist, then we update the end date of the listing to be the time when we removed it. As you can see, we never actually properly remove a listing from the database to always keep an archive, and instead we just put the end date to be not null, and therefore it is signified as terminated. If you see in other places where we check listings, we always check if the end date is null when doing any action. This one we can do. Let's take a look at what listings we have available. So we'll do select star from listing. So here is 1. All right, and this is unit 1. Okay, so we're doing this by address. So unit 1's address is 547 Deborah Park. We go to listing and then search. We can see what is currently there for that, and then if we replace this with address, and then we paste in this, and then we send it to remove listing, we can see status is returned to true. If we run this query again, all of the ones where it was set to null are now set to true. This is just an example database, and the end dates weren't set up correctly. In an actual database, only one value would ever be edited because you can only have one live listing at a time. As you can see, it successfully terminates the listing. Moving on, we have the get listings function. This is for a seller where if you pass in an email, it will get all of the listings listed under that user. So let's do that real quick. Let's get an email. Take this one. If we go here, email, replace it with this one. Get listing, send. Up, I believe get listing. That's the issue. Send. And as you can see, it returns all of the listings that they have had, past or present. It currently isn't sorted. We're expecting it to be sorted on the front end. However, that is something that can easily be implemented on the back end if need be. Next up, we are going to get the viewings per seller, where we pass in the unit ID and the listing date, and we show every single time that that listing had someone schedule a viewing for it. This is called seller, but this can also be used by the agent to check who has looked at this listing. And very similarly, below we have get viewing user, where instead of passing in the listing information, we pass in the user information. And this way we get all of the listings that this user has scheduled a visit to. Moving on, we have the add offer field. So first things first, we check if in the offers there already exists an offer with a status of pending. If there is, we update the status to rejected, since we are only having one offer available for a listing at a time. If a counter offer is made, that automatically assumes that the previous offer is rejected, and this is how we're accounting for it. And then after this is updated to be rejected, we basically just insert a new offer with all of the information passed in. And all of this would be passed into the backend. I'm not going to do this one also due to the sheer amount of things that I would have to put in. But moving on. Next up we have get offer. Get offer takes a unit ID and the date it was listed, and it gets all currently available offers for that unit. This is used by sellers to see everyone who has provided a possible offer for the units that they are selling. Fairly simplistic. We can do it just for fun. Get offer. And if we go to listing, yeah, let's do one of these. So we have unit ID, which is 1. And we also have, what was the other one? Yes, it is called list. And it is in SQL format, so we do that. And we get it as empty, which is interesting. That means that for this specific instance of the listing, no one has actually looked at it yet. Something which definitely could happen in the actual application. Moving on, there is the option to book a viewing. This is probably the most complicated of the backend functions, so we'll go through it step by step. For starters, we take the agent email and basically get we get the agent's email based off of the list date and unit ID. Since only one agent sells each listing, we can get that. And then by getting the agent email this way, we can later on use it to get all of the viewings that an agent has, which we can see over here, I believe. Yep. So what this query over here does is it basically takes all of the viewings that the agent has and checks if there are any within the radius of the time that we are trying to schedule this viewing. As was mentioned in the requirements, there has to be an hour-long wait in between each of the sessions. And since we basically said that every session lasts for exactly 1 hour, and then we need an extra hour in between, we basically take the start time and add 2 hours and compare to that. Same thing on the other side. And then if there is nothing, if there is no conflicts on the agent side, we then repeat the exact same thing except using the user email, since we also want the user to have a fluid experience and not be able to double book. And then if all of that goes well, then we insert into viewing all of the data that is provided. If either of them go wrong, it'll tell the program that there is a conflicting time with the user or a conflicting time with the agent. Moving on, get agents just gets all of the agents that a user has ever connected with, a pretty simple select function. And similarly, get clients gets all the users that an agent has been connected with. This is for the buyer and the agent side respectively. And then there's also the new connection function, which basically just adds a connection between a potential client and an agent. And now then, I believe lastly, yes, we have the get listing search. This is the function which is used when a user is searching for a specific listing based off of some properties. The properties they can search with are the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, or the city in which it is located, or the unit type. The way that we made this query work is using the coalesce function in SQL. What this does is it finds the first non-null value. And as you can see, if if the parameters that are passed in are false or undefined or something like that, then they get automatically turned into null, or otherwise they have their value over here. This means that this will either do the column equals the column, which is always true, or it'll do whatever the value is equals that column, which will allow us to filter it. By doing this, we can have this one function to filter all of the possible requirements and provide a fluid searching experience. And with that, that is everything that the backend has to offer. Thank you.
Hey everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the front end of our Realtor website. So when we first launched the website, this is what you're met with. It shows the welcome page, and you can see that none of the tabs are available. That's because the user is not logged in yet. And so let's go ahead and click on the login button. So here is our login page, and the user can input their email and password. And if they don't have an account, they could also register and input the email into the database. But since we already have users in the database, let's log in as a buyer first. So let's see, buyer at buyer.com, password. Now, once we sign in, we can see that this is now the buyer's homepage. You see all of the tabs that they can go to if they want to log out. But first, let's go to the properties tab. I'll show you some of the most the main features of this website. So they can go to the properties tab. They can see all the current properties that are available. You can see the properties that are input into our database. If they want to, they can request a viewing from any one of these properties. They also have the viewing page where the buyer can see all the current viewings that are booked um, for the property that they are looking at. Uh, and then go to agents, and these are all the agents that are currently available that could help them purchase a house. And then we have offers. So these will be the current offers that are given on the units. So potentially they could see what competition they have. Now that we've seen the features of the buyer, now let's go ahead and log out. Now we are brought back to the login page. All right, now let's log in as an agent. So agent at agent.com, password, sign in. All right, now you'll see this is the agent's view of our website. So they can also see current viewings that are booked that they have with their clients. And then they can also see their current clients that they are talking to. Now let's log out. All right, now let's log in as a seller. So we'll put in seller at seller.com, password. Let's sign in. And now we see that this is the seller's page or seller's homepage. Now, the most unique thing about the seller is that they can see the listings, and these are the current listings that they can see. And if they want, they can also add their home. So they can add their house to this list.